Hello everyone, welcome to the second season of our project An Outside Opinion. My name is Oleg Rybachuk and I am the head of the NGO Center of United Actions. My guests are the ambassadors who represent the states of successful democracies and the working systems of checks and balances. We are discussing the Ukrainian path to the European Union, the reforms and recovery, and how the world security system should look after the war. Today, my guest is Yaroslav Guzzi, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Poland to Ukraine. Poland became member of the European Union in 2004. What was your path to EU? And from that perspective, what would be your advice for Ukraine on this path?
Well, first, we saw this path to EU not as something institutional, acquiring membership, etc. For us, it was the result of anti-communist revolution in our part of Europe. It was just abolishing Iron Curtain and uniting Europe, because EU for us, it was Europe organized the way it should be organized as the whole continent after the Second World War. You remember Central East European countries who were under Soviet rule. They were banned from joining these institutions, among them EU, as a new European post-war order.
Warsaw Pact.
Warsaw Pact, yes, yes, that's right, and some other communist institutions. There was a dream, at least in Poland, but I think in other countries, to escape from this communist Soviet totalitarian rule. And it was a dream for decades, and suddenly, after 1989, it became a real goal in the sense of joining EU, for example, and NATO as second goal. I think it was a strategic goal for new government, democratically elected. It started just at the beginning of 90s, and we started to knock to the door of EU, among others. Of course, we were welcomed. There was a lot of joy at this point in our country, but all over Europe. But nevertheless, especially after Soviet Union collapsed, because we got new neighbors, Baltic countries, Ukraine, well, Belarus as well. At this point, at the time of joy, we started to learn European politics. Yeah. And it was quite a difficult task because at the beginning, I remember leaders of West European countries, German, French, saying, well, you are welcomed, we are happy that we are here, and we started this path to EU. It was not so short as we could imagine and as we were promised. At the beginning, we thought that it was only a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I remember talking to Mr. Saryusz Wolski, who was negotiator of our associate agreement.
I know him very well. I guess he's still in European Parliament, no?
Yeah, that's right. He was disappointed because he thought about this association agreement, this is just for 2-3 years, temporary act. It became an act for 12 years. It was too long, I would say. It was not symmetric. 12 years waiting, opening our market, at the same time to have difficulty to reach European market, common market. So it was too long. But Europe, so-called Europe in the sense of Western Europe, was a bit afraid of this enlargement that happened in 2004.
I remember very much, yes.
Yes, they had their own path to integrate more closely, not only market but also politically. For newcomers, it was not right time to join. You remember Maastricht Treaty? They tried desperately to integrate more before enlargement. It was a funny game. But for us, it wasn't important what's going inside. We are not insiders. So we're waiting patiently in line, knocking to the door, trying to do the best in the sense of meeting criteria, But basically it was political decision on the side of EU, especially major countries, to accept us and some other members, the whole group of former communist countries.
But in Ukraine, we hear it quite often, specifically when we discuss, when we started formally now, we can start negotiations on membership. We are saying Poles for us are still kind of example, because the most popular cliche is that Poland was in no rush, but you employed or used hundreds and thousands of qualified negotiators to defend your position, your business, your trade, and something Ukraine is not having. And this is almost cliche that we should remember, we should be like Poles, not rushing and agreeing on any conditions, because we might be like a very poor relative in this big family. So we should follow your example. Do you remember, can you say that you really had this army of qualified negotiators who've been really defending Poles' interest on the way to EU?
It's not easy to defend interest in negotiations with EU.
Yeah, forces are not equal.
Not equal. We always heard the word, you have to adapt. And Ukraine should not expect much in sense of other attitude. Especially that EU is very complicated mechanism, so it's not easy to change their mind. Of course, on one side you have political criteria, Copenhagen criteria. That's very important. They are very basic, and Ukraine is very close to meet it in sense of institutional reforms. Ukraine government is working hard on it, and what is the most important, Ukraine society is prepared for that. Ukrainians want it. Not only membership in EU, what means welfare, security, etc. They want also well-functioning state, responsive to people needs, etc. This is something what I think Ukrainians have in mind, and the same Poles had in mind when they were pushing government to do everything to join EU as soon as possible. EU and NATO, because standards, basically we were talking about joining the West, so-called the West. Mm-hmm. During this time of this war in Ukraine, everybody is talking about the West as something Ukraine wants to join, and we had the same mood. We didn't focus on specific issues. In sense of internal problems, EU, etc. I would say we didn't have knowledge about inside mechanism.
You mean while negotiating?
Yes, that's right. For us, what is important is to reach this goal, mm-hmm. to find safe harbor. So Ukraine has to be prepared. Two phases. One, very optimistic, requiring hard work to move to EU, to go to become a member, and next another process, and we learned it already 20 years, to learn EU.
This is never ending process.
Never ending, because EU is changing.
EU is changing.
Yes, Poland entered in 2004 is absolutely different from EU in 2024. It's a different Europe with different set of problems. So Ukraine will have other challenges. But what is truly was true in what you're saying about similarities between Poland and Ukraine. For EU, it was easy to accept new members with not much impact on especially economic problems. Poland was the biggest country joining EU in 2004.
In that cycle of enlargement.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So it was interesting to see that everybody has made mistake. On EU side, they were thinking that they were bringing poor cousins, looking
Who
for
would be humble, obedient.
looking for welfare, that you will have to share all this welfare with poorer cousins, etc. But they didn't expect us to become strong competitor. And I think this is something similar with Ukraine. With all Ukrainian problems, of course, war, all the destruction it brings, Ukraine has the same potential, similar. It's a big country with a lot of weight in sense of politics, economy, like I said, potentially because of current problems. So there are some similarities, and that's the reason that Ukrainians should look at Polish example, because they could expect the same problems during negotiations and the same problems after being inside, trying to find its own place in EU structure. And EU structure will be absolutely different, because this is something what Western experts say. When first time real issue of Ukraine becoming member state came to the mind of politicians and experts in Western Europe, geopolitical structure of United Europe is changing. There will be better balance between East and West. Undeveloped East, with all the problems, transformation, economy, politics, everything, but nevertheless, there will be balance. That's very interesting in sense of new enlargement, including Ukraine. This is something new.
I like that saying, which calls like our country's new blood, which old Europe badly need, for number of reasons. Well, this is cliché, obviously. This is not political. But new blood, old blood, to make it to EU, it's absolutely clear. You have to do reforms. And there can be no excuses. But still, there are sometimes voices, or maybe deep in heart, some Ukrainian politicians hoped that they might have excuse on speed of reform, depth of reform, because we have the war. Yeah. Public opinion in Ukraine is very strict. But what do you think? Can the fact that we are at large-scale war be an excuse not to do or to do reforms at slower path?
It depends what kind of reforms. I think the main problem is very practical. It means your government, your authorities are occupied with war. You should not expect the government working the same way our government was working on accession. You have to divide your attention to two important things. It has to be done parallelly, because winning the war is one side. Going to EU to use this opportunity which was given to Ukraine, also because of war and these geopolitical problems Europe encountered. This is a parallel process. It has to be done parallelly. In Poland, we don't have problems, for example, with acceptance that there are no elections in Ukraine during war, because it's unimaginable having elections in such state of war. It's quite natural. The problem is to what extent political elite in Ukraine, I am talking about people being in power and in opposition, to understand that this is a unique situation where politicians have to be united. In Poland, we are similar countries, so we have also a problem how to find a compromise when you think about some strategic goals of the state, not specific party or coalition of parties. So please look at Polish experience in sense of overcoming these political problems, inside political problems. We were able in 2004 and before 2004 to avoid political struggle regarding this basic goal, joining Western structures, especially EU at this time. We are already in NATO. At the beginning of 90s, there was no consensus among politicians, especially post-communists who were quite reluctant, especially regarding NATO. EU was more acceptable, I would say, but nevertheless, it was a problem, transformation, and at the same time meeting this criteria. I hope this criteria will be not used as excuse by our friends in Brussels to delay Ukraine membership, because there are talks about variety of distances. Like I said, we're waiting whole decade, even more. But regarding Ukraine, some people say 10 years, some people say 5 years, some people say 20, 30 years. It's quite difficult to imagine.
Some people say you should stay where you are forever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right, of course. Well, these excuses, you know, you will learn it in Europe that hypocrisy is a very important value in European politics. So don't believe what you are said. Look at facts. In that sense, I'm sure if there is work done by a Ukrainian side, it should be in 5 years' time, no more. Of course, a lot depends on the war situation, for sure, because some delays are quite obvious. But I think it should not be decades, no way. This window of opportunity for Ukraine is not going to be as long. You know what does mean smuta. In Eastern Europe, we know what that does mean. We used smuta in Russia to join Western structures. Now, in more peaceful situation, of course, there were threats. Russia was angry about our speed. We are joining with which we are joining NATO and EU. But in your situation, this is something what really Putin does, not only encouraging Ukrainians to go far away from Russia in sense of politics, well, you'll be neighbor anyway, to escape to the West. This is also to convince our Western partners that is absolutely necessary. I think there is a unique situation when politicians in Brussels, in Western Europe, and also in US, which is watching and supporting Ukrainian cause. I think there is some understanding that it should be done fast. It should be decisive. There are a number of delays regarding processes in EU, but this is a situation where you cannot wait. And Ukraine, together with other countries, because there are some countries that wait too long, like Western Balkans, for example. Well, Moldova has this opportunity. Suddenly,
Erdogan is raising the issue again.
Yes, but Ukraine is driving force, and Ukrainian issue is driving force to unite finally Europe and to define borders of Europe. Because when we talk about this geopolitical result of accession of Ukraine, possibly with changes in Belarus, Ukraine, in sense of politics, culture, well, economy as well, ends at the border of Ukraine with Russia. Russia is something, some place where Europe ends, because we talk about geographical borders of Europe, in sense of political, cultural, yes. Where is Russia? There is no Europe. So you are fighting for Eastern Ukraine, Southern Ukraine, occupied by Russia. You are fighting for borders of Europe.
When Russian full-scale invasion started, it was Poland which embraced Ukraine with open heart. It's not only by giving weapons and equipment. It's more than 3.5 billion, but it's not about money. It's about that level of understanding, sympathy, and hospitality which you cannot describe. Poles did some, at that time when we were psychologically shocked, it was Poland which was acting as a kind of national psychotherapist. And I remember this very well because my daughter and my grandkids are in Warsaw now, and I visit them regularly. I know what I'm talking about. But there are other countries where this level of support is, if not changing, but there are talks about we cannot support Ukraine so much, the war should stop, you should give Putin something which he wants to. Do you feel this mood among European family? And what would be your advice for Ukraine? How Ukraine should act with those countries with such public opinion, which is, well, decreasing, I would say, or getting less enthusiastic about supporting us?
Well, quite difficult task. Because even now, after 20 years of being in EU, together with a number of post-communist Central East European countries, there are still divisions in Europe. One division was visible even before we joined EU, North and South. Mm-hmm. You see it now, for example, especially regarding economic issues, major difference. And after enlargement, of course, it was covered up by politicians who like nice words, etc. But nevertheless, it is visible division between West and East. It was visible, for example, in 2015, when there was migration crisis. Uh-huh. Suddenly, I found articles in Western press about division in Europe. One Europe open, another Europe xenophobic. This kind of stuff. It was quite interesting from sociological point of view. I still consider myself a sociologist. That something what came out was some kind of prejudice, some kind of stereotypes. They are still in minds of West Europeans. So when we talk about situation, how to deal with the public, I think number of problems in convincing public opinion in countries like Germany, France, some other West European countries about quite clear situation in Eastern Europe is first about ignorance, because they don't know Eastern Europe. Second, about prejudice. Of course, I'm talking about this phenomenon in general, but of course you have variety of groups. You have significant, very strong, also in political elites group that does not have such problems with dealing with Eastern Europe or Ukraine war. That's the reason Western coalition is functioning together with combined efforts. But of course you have quite strong groups where really you have to convince them. I think the best way to convince them is by facts. So let's make it internal discussion, I would say. Of course, Europe is, in sense of view, also institutionally, is in some kind of crisis. Identity crisis to some extent, and crisis in institutions.
Yeah, democracy.
Maybe you remember what was the main reaction, first reaction when idea of candidacy for EU of Ukraine became front page news. Well, first we have to reform Europe. Because we are not prepared.
I do.
When you reform it, next we can welcome new members, especially countries like Ukraine, that deserves it, etc. Well, it was funny.
We have to change constitution. Every enlargement must be prepared by changing inner groups. This is large wave, and this is true. Like 9 countries, after a long period of delay, this is a big, big challenge. And we heard a lot about decision making.
Yeah, that's right. But you see, the basis for EU well-being and development was consensus, idea of compromise. To some extent, it was lost. This mechanism doesn't function very well. Of course, everybody is talking about Hungary as bad guy of United Europe.
This is exactly my next question.
You had in mind.
Yes, because it's logical that we burned so much nerves watching December decision about giving Ukraine this package of 50 billion for the next 4 years. It's extremely important for us because if you are part of EU financial budget, you are in there, you are part of it. And you remember what was the major problem? Position of Hungary and veto which Orban used effectively in December, but then, as you say, still a number of European diplomats say that consensus worked, that famous Scholz initiative for a coffee break, but still we all understand that this is something. And moreover, I am now very much surprised to hear that, I don't know if there was the case when European Parliament now went to European Court to bring to responsibility EU Commission for, if not, well, for giving Hungary money where reforms actually did not take place. It's very, I don't know. I don't remember whether it was before or not. But my question is, next wave of enlargement, I remember when a friend of mine, German ambassador in late 90s, we've been meeting quite often, and we had hours of talks, and he was saying, well, there were times, there were 6 of us, European community or whatever they've been called. Every minister could talk half an hour. We could discuss. Now it was 20-something. It's nightmarish, but now it will be 30-something, 35. So do you think that there should be some prerequisites for making it impossible for 1 or 2 members blocking the absolute majority? Is EU discussing this, or how you view kind of safeguards to avoid this kind of crisis? Not crisis, but, well, strange situation where one country can block the unanimous decision of the rest of the family.
When we watched how this compromise mechanism worked before enlargement, we had, like you mentioned, some EU specialists, and we're watching this mechanism, especially Maastricht Treaty and some difficult compromises. Basically, you had French-German tandem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Majority shareholders.
It still tries to be tandem running EU even after enlargement and possible further enlargement. And the way to deal with smaller countries with specific needs and creating problems was to bribe them.
Well,
EU was
similar to what they did to Orban.
Yes, that's right. Maybe it's not
the nice, bribe is kind of
bribe, quote unquote, of course. It's not a nice way, but some gestures. Sometimes it was behind closed doors. But coming back to the problem of reform of EU, because it's very important. At the beginning, when this problem was raised as an obstacle to start talks with Ukraine.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago they've been discussing.
A couple of years ago.
Changed too.
Poland was first to say, no way. No way.
It was German-French initiative, right? Kind of majority, let's vote by majority.
Yeah. No, we cannot wait. Enlargement is more important. Reforms are reforms. They could be done, but this is another process, and so one cannot rely on other. We are told the same in 1990s. Sorry, we have to reform, we have to put our European room in order, so we have to wait. It was just excuse. It was just excuse. And I'm talking not only about government at this time, but also about opposition, which was very pro-European. Political elite in Poland understood very well that it's just excuse. An attempt to delay something what is in Poland's interest, not only Poland's, but other neighbors. like Baltic countries, generally in our region. So we decided to make strong statement on it. And finally, we convinced our Western partners to stop this talking, stop this delay. So this is another example. You mentioned Polish stand regarding war in Ukraine, etc. We have fundamental agreement, what is fundamental interest in common, Poland and Ukraine, generally as two countries creating something what is called intermarium.
Oh yes, I remember that very much.
So I would say that European reform, in sense of looking for majority vote, is something misleading because Poland, for example, with pro-European government, is not very keen to that idea. All countries, including...
As Baltic countries, I remember, because they believe there would be, again, Franco-German monopoly that you can...
Yeah, that's right. Already when you have majority vote, basically it is arranged this way, that French-German tandem, with some other countries, it is decisive vote. And sometimes we suffer regarding that. So abolishing consensus, especially regarding security matters, you remember discussion about security situation in Europe before full-scale aggression of Russia in Ukraine. All the mistakes done by European elites, West European elites.
We do.
Yes.
Minsk agreement.
Exactly. So, well, it's better to have some security mechanism, safety mechanism, and consensus is safety mechanism, especially regarding security issues, defense issues. You have to remember that we have also NATO, and most of EU countries are in NATO. There are several neutral countries, but nevertheless it is almost the same with transatlantic relationship. Regarding Polish attitude, Poland prepares itself to European presidency next year. And what is the main idea of it? To keep transatlantic relationship between EU and US and Canada, some other countries. We are not for this European house with closed doors. The same you see regarding attitude towards enlargement. Poland is very open. I remember at the time when Erdogan in Turkey was at the beginning of his political career, and he was very pro-European. Poland was the only country where majority, slim but majority of people were in favor of Turkish membership.
I didn't know.
Yes, you can imagine what were results in Germany, in France regarding that. So we are open-minded, and in sense of European mechanism, we are open-minded in sense of Europe with a lot of room for internal discussion, liquidating democracy deficit, what exists in European institutions. I think this is, I'm talking not about political doctrine, I'm talking about attitude of Poles. Because Poles are very pro-European, but they are rarely asked question, what kind of Europe you like? And this is something what Ukrainians will face at some point. Now they like EU like it is. Even if it is not very friendly, it has some delays, it's sometimes arrogant, but Ukrainians like it. When they are in EU, this is a different story. Ukrainians should already think about what kind of Europe they like. In that sense, Ukraine could be in the same position like number of countries from our region that are afraid that abandoning consensus could be endangering their interest at some point. And all post-communist countries came to independence in 1990s, and they enjoy it, sovereignty. democracy, independence. When they
And
enter,
even just status, life of ordinary people, living standards. This is something which is just on the surface.
yes, but you
How
see,
economy grows.
Ukraine is paying enormous price for sovereignty, and later you will discuss with European elites how much of this sovereignty you will give to others. That's an open question. So Poland had the same problem. Poland generally, in sense of population, in sense of society, likes to keep its identity, wants to be partner. That's open question, open issue for Ukraine also.
This wave of enlargement is rather big. And there are a number of countries like Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, some Balkan countries, which frankly are not very well prepared institutionally. So my question is certain challenges for EU enlargement in the sense how to make sure that the countries which are in this package of enlargement would be success stories and would not follow the way of some countries which became members of EU and NATO and then started to regress, or lower democracy level, freedoms, basic standards. So you make it, but you stop growing democratically, and frankly, in some countries there is this tendency to get more and more authoritative, where freedom of speech. In Poland, you had even similar problem just politically recently. That was very much discussed also. But how do you think that there may be something in methodology? Should EU look proactively how to avoid, how to make sure that ideally every member of enlargement would be just a success story, no way to get off the track and to move into authoritarian state of affairs again?
Well, in that sense, you could ask me why I was nominated to become ambassador by so quote-unquote authoritarian previous government.
Why?
That's something what is very often misleading in the sense of what's going on in countries like Poland and Hungary. When I talk to my American friends...
You mean it's more cliché or stereotype?
Well, yes, cliché. First, there are differences between Hungary and Poland. I am in such age, and after such experience, my political experience comes from opposition when I was a student in the 1970s. I was part of Solidarity movement, democratic movement, independence movement. I was involved in public life in 1990s during our transformation, political and economic. I watched at these internal issues, also called populist democratic movement from long distance. And don't buy cliché first. In Poland, I'm very sorry about it because I have friends in both political groups on both sides of this tribal political war, I call it. And, well, EU is on one side. So opinions from Brussels are very often also politically motivated. There is major difference regarding what's going on in Poland and Hungary, because democracy means first people decide who govern them. And you saw elections in Poland in previous year, and you saw democracy works. In Hungary, I think democracy still works, even if system created by Orban is quite closed system. But I will ask Hungarian opposition. I have also friends in Hungary on both sides. I remember Orban as young student.
Me too. I was meeting
idealistic student.
Not student, but I was meeting him when he was in the central bank. I started my career in the National Bank, and we traveled there. And he was like Macron, young, over-enthusiastic, democratic.
Yeah, sure. And now he is very pragmatic, like he called himself, politician. Some call him cynical politician. This is an open question. What caused this evolution? Nevertheless, I would ask Hungarian opposition why they cannot convince people to vote for them. Yeah. That's the question. So let's not focus on Orban only. And Orban, his conflict, like previous Polish government conflicts with EU institutions, this is very complicated story, and clichés are not the best description of it. You will see when you are inside. I'm talking about Ukraine, because Brussels is bureaucracy. European Commission is not European government. European Parliament is not true parliament. European Parliament, for example, when you talk about parliamentary opinions on EU Commission activity, you mentioned.
No, they are bringing EU Commission to the court.
Well, European Parliament is more political agora, where people express their views. You have political groups where political views are combined with national divisions, or like we mentioned, this north, south, west, east. This is a very messy situation. Messy, and we are coming back to the idea of European reform, how to put everything in order. The worst idea is to make it in authoritarian way. You have to convince people.
Bring a vertical.
Yes, that's right. So I watched this idea of trying to make Hungary or Poland during previous government good pupil. Countries are not pupil, because otherwise you think about European Union where there is one principle not written in European treaties that are basis for activity and judgments and mechanism. All member states are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah, we know the saying. Yeah.
You know the saying. So please have it in mind. And I'm very sorry that this discussion about Hungary and Poland, authoritarians, sleeping democracy, etc., is very politically motivated, not going to the sense of issues. Because case of Hungary as bad guy regarding Ukraine problems, for example, look who is hiding behind Hungary regarding sanctions.
Do you see this as a challenge that there is certain social contract within EU, and when such countries as Ukraine are moving in, there could be certain challenges for this contract? I mean that some countries are on the recipient end of EU funds, others are donors. And I guess this story might be also true for Poland. Because when somebody like is coming into recipient, large country, so the countries which used to be recipients, sooner or later should be donors, and that might be not very attractive. How you look at this? Is this a challenge? Should we somehow also keep in mind that Ukraine moving into EU can just increase this disbalance or can cause certain tensions within EU countries which are now on recipient?
Well, I think not only political elites in Poland, but also general public is fully aware that time when Poland is one of major recipients of EU structural funds, let's say, and Ukraine will replace Poland in this role in next budget cycle. I think there's awareness of it. Generally, we enjoy economic growth in Poland, and we knew from the beginning that this time we will run out. And I think it's acceptable. Yeah. General idea, when we accepted idea and we benefited from this idea that structural funds are to make balance in more developed and less developed countries, it is quite natural that we have to accept it when Ukraine joins EU, and according to criteria, it will be major recipient, and Poland could become a donor. Generally, even without Ukraine, Poland would become equal in sense of donation to EU and funds coming to Poland in next budgetary cycle. So this is last budgetary cycle where we are net beneficiary of EU funds.
One question which we cannot avoid is how comes that we got this border problem? I heard yesterday statement probably from Pavel Koval that in the nearest week or two it would be over. But what I'm interested in your opinion, because it started not today, and to what effect does it affect general mood of Polish politicians and broad public? We hear a lot about farmers' agriculture, we understand this. So what is your view, how it started and how we can get out of this deadlock?
In three simple words, yes? It became too complicated.
This is something I am almost daily asked by, I am on Ukrainian news daily, the most hot issues. Now it's slightly less, but last 2 weeks, as you imagine, it was mostly discussed.
You can imagine that I am asked very frequently the same question.
So you can just, in the midnight, you can be awake and you will immediately say in 3 words.
You have basically 3 parties of this problem. Poland, in sense of politics, but also some interest groups, of course, like farmers or transportation industry.
Stakeholders, yeah.
You have EU, you have Ukraine. And all parties committed sins, unfortunately. And they are all responsible for this problem that it rose to such extent. Original sin is on the side of EU. Decision, what was welcomed by Polish government, by the way, of opening market for all products, including agriculture, was right at the time of war. But you see, what's the problem with EU functioning? Slow reaction or avoiding reaction, because it was quite visible after...
Or delaying until elections.
Yes, that's right. And it was exactly what was done by EU, because Polish government was late in finding out that Polish market for agricultural goods is in such chaotic state because of uncontrolled import of agricultural goods from Ukraine. It started to alarm EU, a bit too late, but EU Commission said, sorry, this is not EU problem. EU market, this problem relates only to peripheral markets. You should remember the word peripheral. Because
we know, because Putin is saying Ukraina, it's like peripheral.
Yes. So you are a good candidate to become even more peripheral market than Poland in future. You like this idea, so be prepared. And you did nothing. There were some demands. Let's give transitional money for Ukrainian goods to cost the same price in Poland and in Hamburg harbor, let's say, to export it. No, nothing has been done. And original sin on the side of Ukraine was there is no problem. There is European law. You have to accept it. It was a message to Polish government. But you see, like I mentioned before, EU Commission is not EU government. It's not running Europe. It is bureaucratic office to govern all the problems according to European treaties. It has a lot of power, but nevertheless, they were responsible for solving this problem together with Polish and Ukrainian government. There was a way of compromise, especially at the beginning of the process. Unfortunately, it wasn't stopped. Later, what the Polish government did, the only way to do something was to put embargo, spring 2023. It was effective in that sense that at the end of this year, import of agricultural goods to Polish market and while to some other markets because of other solutions as well, was limited. At the same time, you remember what Putin did. Putin stopped agreement on Black Sea corridor export. Fortunately, it was done later due to military efforts of Ukraine and also friendly attitude of other countries, Western Coalition and Black Sea neighbors of Ukraine. So it works. But what came out at the end of previous year? That maybe import from Ukraine is problem for Polish farmers, but it could be also a problem at least visible, at least in minds, for farmers in Western Europe. And generally, farmers' revolution, you could see it.
Oh, it goes...
It was in Greece, it was in Spain, it was in France.
Portugal.
Brussels, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Polish farmers became part of a general European protest and dissatisfaction regarding EU policy. Green Deal, of course, but also some other issues. And unfortunately, Ukraine became part of it. It didn't deserve it, in the sense of it's not major problem for European farmers. This problem could be solved by specific instruments by EU. It didn't do it, unfortunately.